Hey guys, welcome to the absolute beginner tutorial on how to use Adobe Premiere Pro CC. If you've never used the software before and you want to make your own videos and you have no idea what you're doing, this is the perfect video for you. It's a video that I wish I had when I first started. So stick around because I'm going to talk about all of those things listed on my whiteboard. So we're going to go through how to create a new project, how to import footage, the basic workspace layout, how to create a sequence, how to trim and cut your footage, adding background music, where I get my background music from, how to adjust the volume of your music, adding text, adding logos, adding images, basic transitions, and then after all that, how to export to YouTube. So essentially everything that an absolute beginner wants to know how to do. So I'm going to show you how to do it in this tutorial. So if you want the project files that I'll be using in this video, you can click and download them in the description below. You can follow along with me or you can use your own footage. It's completely up to you. And then otherwise, I'll have a chapter marker down below. So if you want to go to a specific section of the video, you can just click on the timestamps. Otherwise, let's get straight into it. So I'm going to open up the software. I've got my screen recording here and we're going to go relatively quickly. If I'm speaking too fast, you can actually slow the video down. If I'm speaking too slowly, you can jack up the speed a little bit. People complain that I talk too fast and too slow, so I can never win, but you can change the speed of the video. Okay, so I'm opening up the software here. First thing we're going to do is create a new project. So click on that one, create a new project. We're going to call this one, I don't know, travel, adventure, tutorial, something like that. And then I'm just going to click browse and I'm just going to put this on my desktop there, select folder, and that's where I want to save the project. And essentially, you can leave everything else the same and then click OK. So that's pretty much how you create a new project. The next one on my list is how to import footage. So before we go any further, I just want to make sure we're looking at the same thing. So on your screen, you may see this, you may not see this. If you see at the top here, the top menu where it says editing, right at the top there, if you click on that, we're going to go into the editing workspace here. So if you're still not seeing what I'm seeing, if you just go to Window, Workspaces, and then go to Editing right here, you should see 4 empty boxes like this on your screen, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is import footage, right? All you need to do, go to the bottom left-hand corner where it says Import Media to start. You just double-click on that, opens up this window, and then we're going to look for our footage. So what I like to do real quick is I like to organize my footage into folders. It just makes it easier to, edit, and the workflow just makes it a lot simpler. So I like to put my background music and all of my drone and GoPro and images and phone footage, everything in separate folders. It just makes it easier. And then I just import those individual folders into my project. So we're going to go through one by one, import the background music, double click again, go to drone footage, import, where it says import folder, double click again, and then go to GoPro footage. You get the idea. So we're just going to quickly do this for the other couple of folders, images and logos, import folder. And then you'll see that we have now essentially imported everything we need into this, what they call the project window, right? Down here. Now, if I double click on each of these, you'll see I've got my background track here. If I hit the up arrow, go to drone footage, I've got my drone clips here, and then GoPro footage, you get the idea. Also as well, you can change the view from list view to icon view. So if you click on list view, it gives you everything in a list. Icon view, everything's an icon, right? So I just thought I'd point that out. So that's essentially how you import your footage into Premiere Pro. Okay, so real quick, the workspace layout. I'm not going to bore you with this, but just some real fundamentals of the software. So you already know the project window. That's where you import all of your footage into. Then we have the timeline window, which is to the right here. And then we have the program monitor box up here, and then the source monitor box. So the timeline window is where we're going to be working with all of our footage. And essentially that's like a canvas where we kind of build the story of our video. We have the program monitor box, which is like the output. It's like what the final result is going to look like. And then the source monitor box, you'll get to see in just a second. And then down here, we have a toolbox with basic tools, right? Which you'll get to see how they work in just a second. So that's the workspace layout. So the first thing we want to do is create a new sequence. All you got to do, some guys get really technical with this. If you're an absolute beginner, you don't really need to know the technical stuff. You just go and find some footage. We'll go to, for example, drone footage, and right click on any one of your clips, and then see where it says new sequence from clip. If you just click on that, it creates a brand new sequence. It is that easy. And then over here, we've got our sequence created, and that's the name of our sequence, which is the name of the drone clip. You can rename that, which is what I suggest you do. And down over here, you'll see a sequence file has been created. So if you click right there on the label, you can just rename it to, like, I don't know, travel adventure tutorial, and then enter. And you'll see over here where the name has now changed. The sequence is now called Travel Adventure Tutorial. We now have a drone clip inside our timeline. And then the output, as I said, is over here in the program monitor box. So we've got our new sequence. Let's start putting some footage into our timeline and start trimming and cutting and all that kind of stuff. So essentially, this is where the fun begins. This is where you go through your footage and then figure out what you want and what you don't want in the final product. It's pretty straightforward. I'll show you using drone footage. And I will click on the first clip here. And when you click on your clips in the project monitor window, you'll see it pop up in the source monitor box over here. And then what you do is you just use your little scrub tool and you just kind of pick what you want and then just leave the rest behind. So if I just take this little scrub tool and then just kind of flick around and just have a look, all I need to do once I figure out what I want to keep and use in my final video, I just hit the mark in option there. So if you click on that and then just drag this out a little bit more and then hit mark out, you'll see a little shaded bit there. All you got to do, there's different ways of doing this. You can either click where it says drag video only. Now this is a drone clip, so drones don't record audio. So I can either click and drag that over to my timeline and drop it down like that. Right, that's one option. I'll delete that. The second option is I can either hit where it says insert or overwrite. So there's two options here. So if I just move my playhead over here to the beginning, click on insert, it will drop it into my timeline. I'm not going to explain the difference between insert and overwrite right now. You'll figure that out very quickly what that means. But that's essentially how you take your clips from your source monitor box, pick what you want, and then just drop it into your timeline. And then all you have to do is just click on each of your other clips and hit the scrub tool, go mark in, mark out, right? And then just either drag video only or just hit insert or overwrite. And again, that drops it onto the timeline. So far we've got one drone clip, two drone clips, and then we'll just go to our GoPro footage and then we'll just double click here and scrub what we want. So another way of actually marking in and out points to select the footage you want is hitting I on the keyboard, which is a shortcut. Now, when you're playing with video editing a lot, you'll learn the shortcut keys very quickly. Hit the space bar to play. Spacebar to stop, hit the O key on the keyboard, and then you can either hit comma or full stop, which means insert or overwrite. So I'm going to hit the full stop button, and as you can see, it's already dropped it on my timeline. And then I get some scuba diving footage, and I hit the I key, hit spacebar, hit the O key, and then again, full stop, and it drops it onto my timeline. So that's essentially how you drop things onto your timeline from the source monitor box. But then I'll show you some cool things with using the timeline and just doing a little bit of editing inside the timeline window itself. So in terms of trimming and cutting, it's very easy to do. If you just make sure that you have selected the selection tool here on the toolbox, or you hit V on the keyboard, it changes the icon of your cursor. So if you can click on any clip here, go to the edge of the clip, and then you can just click and drag it in to trim it down if you want. Or you can do the other end as well. You can trim it down at the beginning, and you can go through each of these clips and then just, trim them back or trim them out. And that's as easy as how to trim a particular clip. You can either click and move these clips around inside the timeline as such. You can, lasso a number of clips and you can drag them together. But essentially you've got V1, V2, and V3, which is video track layer 1, 2, and 3, audio track layer 1, 2, and 3 for all your audio tracks. But for most people watching this, you're probably only going to use audio track layer 1 and 2 and video track layer 1 and 2. So essentially, if you want to cut inside the timeline, there's a razor tool here. You can either hit C on the keyboard or you can just click it and your little cursor will change to a little razor. And you can just click anywhere on the clip to cut what you don't want. And you'll see here it just puts little cuts inside the clip here. Go back to the selection tool, click on that, click what you don't want, and then press delete, delete. And then another cool trick I like is hit right. If you right click on the little black space, on the empty space, it says ripple delete. If you click on that, it just kind of closes that empty space and moves all the clips forward. So I'll just undo that. So to undo, right, you'll be doing this very often, is Control or Command Z on the keyboard, right? So Control or Command Z. If you keep pressing that, it'll just undo, undo, undo. Or you can just go up to where it says Edit, and then you'll see Undo, Control or Command Z. And that's how you undo. Okay, so one more thing just real quick that I want to point out is that you can just click on any one of these clips and you can move them over the top of each other and you can put them on different layers. And this little selection tool is almost like an eyeball. I almost think of it like an eyeball that kind of looks down from above. So it only kind of sees the very top layer and it doesn't actually see what's underneath that particular layer. So if I move this little selection, this little scrub tool along, you'll see that it's now looking at this clip here on video track layer 2. Now, if it's not, now it can't see video track layer 1, but if I scrub this over a little bit to the left, now it's looking at the clip on video track layer 1. So it's kind of looking down from the sky. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to add background music to these clips. So I'm going to find my background music track. Now I can't actually include this background track in the project because it's licensed under my name from Epidemic Sound, but I'll include a free one that you can play with if you like, or you can just use your own. And inside the project window, click and drag it over there onto your timeline there. In this case, we're going to drag it onto audio track layer 2. And I'll show you something else as well. Inside the timeline window, it could be kind of hard to see what's going on because everything's pretty small. So you can actually expand out these tracks to make it bigger so you can see exactly what's going on. So all you've got to do is just double click over here, watch where my cursor is. If I double click here, it expands that track out so you can see the whole waveform of the background music. You can do the same thing over here to audio track layer 1. You can do the same thing with video track layer 1, video track layer 2. If you double click again, it compresses it back down again. So anyway, that's how you do that. So now we have our background music applied to our project. What is next? Oh, real quick, I'll just show you where I get my background music from. So there's plenty of places we can get free background music. It's a conversation for another video, but I get my music from Epidemic Sound, really high quality professional music. I'll link them up in the description below, but this is where I'm using this particular track from. So the Epidemic Sound. So how do you adjust the background music and the volume levels of your projects? It's very straightforward. So if you have a look, we've got our background music here. This is where we're going to pay attention to our audio meters or audio levels. So over here on the far right hand side, you'll see this little meter thing. So that's what you're going to be looking at when you're adjusting your levels. Always make sure that when you are adjusting your audio levels that you never go into the red. And I'll show you what that means in just a second. So I'm playing this back. We want our audio levels to be around -12, something along those lines. So far it's pretty good. So you can see it's kind of almost going into the red zone. Now I'll bump this up a little bit and I'll demonstrate what it looks like and where you should never go. All right, see that it's hit the red, it's peaked out. Never do that. So we need to adjust the audio levels a little bit. So you can either do it by clicking on this line here and just dragging it down, And as you drag it down, it says like minus 12.8 decibels or minus 10 decibels. And if you double click over here to expand that out, you can do the same thing with these little audio tracks as well, these little audio clips as well. And then when you play it back, again, minus 12 is kind of what we're shooting for. It's a little bit soft. I'll bring this up a little bit more. Okay, so that's pretty much how you adjust the audio levels. Another way of doing it is by actually right-clicking on the clip and then going to audio gain, and you can adjust it in here by -5. You can reduce it by 5 decibels, or you can increase it by 5 decibels. But I'll let you play with that in your own time with your own footage. But at the end of the day, when you're adjusting your audio levels, just make sure -12 is kind of what we're chasing. No more than -6. And that's how you do it. Okay, so the next one is how to add images and logos to your video. So we have an Instagram logo that I'm going to add to this project. You might have your own business branding or company logo or personal brand logo that you want to use, or even still images from a camera. It's pretty much the same process. You just follow along. It's pretty straightforward. So all you got to do is go and find your still photos. If you go into images and logos, we have our Instagram logo there. We just click and drag it over to video track layer 2, and you'll see it pop up there in the program monitor box. Now, if I play this, all right, we need to change the position of this logo. So all you got to do, whenever you want to make changes to a specific clip or image in your project, you got to click on it and highlight it inside your timeline window. And then the second thing you got to do is go over to where it says Effect Controls over in the top left-hand corner, and then where it says Motion, right? It's a little arrow there. It's very hard to see. So you click on that and it expands out all these different options. And the ones that you're going to be spending a lot of your time playing with is position and scale. So if you just click and kind of move this around, you'll see that the logo is moving down the screen. And then if we move the position over here to just drag it over to the left, drag this down a little bit more. So I'm just adjusting the position values. And then here where it says scale, I can change the size of it. So I can increase it 120%, 170%. You get the idea, or I can just make it smaller. It's completely up to you. And if I just play this back, now I want to have that logo apply across pretty much the entire video itself. So all you got to do is just click on the image here in the timeline, and then just, if I zoom in to the timeline, I'll show you how to do that. So down here, there's like a little tiny, like a little bar thing. If you just pull that to the left, right, it gets smaller, and I'm actually zooming into my timeline, and that will just make everything much bigger, and I can see things a lot clearer. So that's how you zoom in and zoom out of your timeline. But then you just make sure you got selection or V, the selection tool or V selected on your keyboard, and then just click and drag this out so that it covers the entire, all of the clips, right? So if I play this back, we have our Instagram logo, and then we can just put our Instagram name. It's just that simple, which gets on to the next point of how to add text. So adding text, all you got to do is, there's different ways you can do it. I'll show you the easiest. You can go down to your toolbox here, and where it says T, you can click on that, or you can press T on the keyboard. It's a shortcut key. So press T or click on T, and then our cursor changes. And literally all you have to do is just click anywhere inside the program monitor box, and this is what happens. So first thing that happens is, on V3 or video track layer 3, a graphics layer is created, and then a little red box will pop up inside the program monitor box. And this is where we can just type in, anything we want. So I'll just put in my Instagram handle, And then all I got to do, watch carefully, is I click on where it says selection tool, click on that, go up to window, and then go down to where it says essential graphics, and make sure essential graphics is selected. So click on that, and a little window will pop up on the right hand side here, and where it says essential graphics, click on edit, and then we can change all of the properties of our text using everything inside this window, inside the edit window. So we have here Brad Newton official, and then we can change all of the positioning and size and font and all of that inside here. So I'll let you play with this in your own time. It's all pretty self-explanatory, but you can essentially just, using these little numbers here, you can just kind of move the text around like that. Here we can change the font. So we will change it to Beavers, for example. And then we can just click on the handles and we can make it bigger like that. And then what I like to do personally is down here where it says stroke, this is kind of like the outer edge of the text. Because what happens sometimes, the text is very hard to see with the background with the video. So if you just click on the checkbox here for stroke, click here where it's the little white box, click on that, and then just change it to black. So you just click anywhere sort of in this black area here, click OK, and then we've now changed the stroke of our text to black. And then over here, it says 1.0, that's the thickness of our stroke. We're going to change it to 2.0 or 3.0. This is personally what I like to do. You should just play around with this and see what works best for you. And as you can see, the text is a little easier to see against the background of like the ocean in this case. And then again, I can just click on the text and I can either drag it around like this, I can change the size of it like that. Again, I can change the font. I can change the fill of my text. So over here, it's white fill. If I click on that white box, I can change it to blue, red, any color that I want, green. Click OK. You'll see, you get the idea. So Control or Command Z to undo. And if I zoom out of my timeline, again, I've got this little graphic layer here on Video Track Layer 3. And then all I got to do is just kind of expand that all the way out as such. And that will apply across the entire clip. So that's essentially how you add text. Now, there's a couple of things I want to bring up, is that I've noticed that here, our drone clips have filled the entire window of our sequence, but here, our GoPro clips are kind of small. Now, I'll talk about the reasons why that's the case in another video. I do talk about that in the course, but essentially all you got to do is right-click on the clip, and then where it says scale to frame size, if you click on that, it automatically adjusts the size of the clip to match the frame or the sequence settings. I'll talk about that in another video, how that works. And again, with this one, right-click on it, click on scale to frame size, and the same thing happens there. So it's pretty straightforward. And again, I'll play this back. I might want to make this a little smaller, so just shrink this down a little bit. I can actually click on the logo down here. I've selected it just to make it a little smaller. Again, effect controls, shrink it down a little bit, just like that. Okay, so let's talk about how to add transitions to your video clips. Now, the common transitions, there's so many you can use, but the easiest way of doing it is clicking on these two arrows here and then going down to effects. And then essentially we have video effects, video transitions over here, and audio transitions and audio effects. Right, so if you click on the little arrows and expand it out, you've got all these different options: zoom, wipe, slide. You get the idea, right? And you have the same thing with audio transitions as well. To be honest with you, the only ones that you really need to be playing with that kind of look nice without looking too tacky is dip to white and dip to black. You can literally just type it in. So dip, if you just type in dip, it literally just picks them up for you, right? So dip to black, dip to white. So if you click, drag it in between two clips on your timeline, and then watch this. So that's a nice little dip to black. So dips out to black and then fades into the next clip as such. And so you got dip to black and dip to white, which is what I like to use. You can actually just click any transition, and you can just override the old transition just by dropping it over the top of the old one. So we're now using dip to white. So if I play this back, so it dips to white. Otherwise, you can just use a normal cross dissolve, and you can just go over here and type in dissolve. And here it says cross dissolve. You just click on that and drag it over to the beginning, in between the clips, or the end. It's up to you. We're going to drag this one to the beginning of the clip and play this back. You'll see that nice little cross dissolve at the beginning. As we play this through, we have a dip to white. And then I'm just going to do another cross dissolve for the end of this clip. Actually, we'll do a dip to black between the drone clip and the GoPro clip, another dip to black over here, and then the very end we can do another cross dissolve. But a really cool shortcut, if you just right click, so if you take your cursor, go to the very end of your clip, right? If you right click there, it says apply default transitions. It automatically applies the default transition of cross dissolve and constant power. So you'll see that the dissolve is also applied for the audio aspect of the transition. So constant power has been applied. So if you want to fade in and fade out of your background music, or fade in and fade out of your videos, of your video clips, the two common ones to use, which are the defaults in the software, is cross dissolve for your video side of things, and then constant power for your audio side of things. So if we do the same, if we delete the cross dissolve at the beginning of this clip, so to delete a transition, you just click on the transition and press delete on the keyboard. And again, if we take our cursor to the very beginning of our clip, right click, click on apply default transitions, and again it applies the default transition of cross dissolve. Now, to fade in and fade out of your background music, again, constant power is what you can use, which is what I love to use. If you just type in constant in the search box under effects, you'll see it comes up with two options: constant power, which is the default, and then constant gain. I'll talk about the differences in another video, but it doesn't really matter for a beginner tutorial. Just click on and drag constant power over to the background music and release it. And now we have a nice fade in for our background music. Now, of course, we can apply the same transition for our Instagram logo and our text by right-clicking on the Instagram logo and clicking on Apply Default Transition. On our text layer, on Video Track Layer 3, right-click, Apply Default Transition, and everything will fade in at the same time. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so all we're going to do now before we export to YouTube, I just want to quickly play it back, make sure everything's kind of working the way I want it to work. I have my text, my logo, I've got my background music, and make sure that it's not sort of going above -12 or -6 at the very highest. And then I might just want to shorten this down a little bit, so I just take these two clips and just drag it over the top of the drone clip here, click on this logo here, and just trim that back, click on the text, trim it back. And then all I got to do to chop the music off, if I hit the razor tool, because you'll notice that our music just kind of goes on forever and ever, right? We don't want the music track to go on and on forever. So we're going to take our razor tool, click on that, and then we're just going to cut the music off right there. And get our selection tool, we're going to select what we don't want, press delete, and then we right click here on our music, apply default transition, and that's going to fade out the background music. And that's pretty much it. So now we export to YouTube. The easiest way to export this video in the proper export settings for YouTube is literally go to File, Export, Media. And so many people explain this in so much unnecessary complicated jargon. You don't need to really know all the ins and outs of like the settings and everything else. All you got to do is make sure under export settings, format H.264 is selected, and it probably is, right? So you probably don't need to touch that. Where it says preset, you'd hit the drop down, you go all the way down to the bottom where it says YouTube 1080p, right? If it's a 4K video, then 2160p 4K. But in this case, we're just gonna, for the sake of explanation, we're gonna select 1080, assuming that we've shot everything in 1080, right? We're gonna export in 1080. If we've shot everything in 4K, then we're gonna export it in 4K. If we've shot in 720, then you export in 720, right? But I'm just gonna select 1080p, right? Even though we've got a couple of 4K video clips in our sequence, we're just, for the sake of a beginner tutorial, we're just gonna go 1080p. The name of our project is Travel Adventure Tutorial. We're gonna export the video and the audio, and seriously, all we need to be concerned about is if we go to the video tab here, 1920, 1080, you don't need to touch anything else. Square pixels, everything is going to be selected. Make sure, NTSC or PAL, to be honest with you, for a YouTube video, it doesn't really make a difference. You can just leave that one alone. If we just scroll down, continue scrolling down, VBR one pass, honestly, just leave everything as is. This is a preset, right? So the preset that we've selected up here is going to adjust all of these settings according to what YouTube wants. So just leave everything else behind and then go down here. We've got a couple of settings down here. Honestly, you don't really need to play with this, right? Use maximum render quality, import into project, using previews, using proxies, right? But down here it says estimated file size, 36 megabytes. So that's approximately how big the video file is going to be, right? 36 megabytes. And over here, you'll see a little preview window of what our project looks like, right? And then honestly, we go to audio tab. Again, we don't need to really change anything here. Multiplexer, captions, publish, just leave all of that behind. Hit export, and then that's it. You just got to wait for it to render the project and put it all together, and you've done everything you need to do. You can upload it to YouTube. All right, guys, that is it. I just realized this camera stopped recording, so I'm redoing this last bit, but I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. If there's anything about this tutorial you're not sure of, you can download the project files in the link down below. If you want to watch a 70-minute tutorial that goes into a little bit more detail, then I'll link that up as well. What else is there? We didn't talk about color correction or color grading or any other of those details. Most absolute beginners don't really need to know that sort of stuff. That kind of comes later on in the editing journey. What else is there? That's pretty much it, guys. I hope this was helpful. This was a video that I wish I had when I first started my editing journey 5 years ago or so in Premiere Pro. I've made probably over 1,300 videos now using only this software. So yeah, anyway, I hope to see you guys in a future video, a future travel adventure video or a fitness adventure video in January 2021. I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any traveling happening, much travel happening this year. Otherwise, yeah, I'll see you guys in the future. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you in the future. Goodbye.